What's up guys, and welcome back to MOV+. Hope you've had a good week so far. Our workout today is going to have 4 pieces to it. So we're going to start off with the warm-up, just get ourselves prepped for all the hard stuff. We then have the build workout, which is going to be 3 minutes on, 30 seconds off, 3 minutes on again. So we've got a couple of abdominal movements we're going to be working through there. The move workout is going to have a bit of an interval sort of style to it as well. So minute on, 30 off. We'll be going through 3 movements and 3 cycles on that one. So we'll have a look at that one a little bit more in depth when we get to it. And then finally the finisher, which is going to again be a little bit more midline work. So really working on strengthening that. As per usual, we will finish off with some cool down work with some mobility. But as for now, we're going to have a look at that warm up. So we're going to kick things off with 2 minutes of cardio of your choice. What we'll be doing today is combining 2 different movements. So one is going to be 10 reps on a plate ground overhead. So grabbing a nice light plate, going from floor up to the lockout. We're then going to put that plate down and go into 30 running step-ups. Okay, so again, nice low target to go for, nice and continuous. So we're going to cycle those 2 movements for 2 minutes. We then go into the remaining 3 minutes, where each minute on the minute, you're going to start off with 50 skips. So just our normal run-of-the-mill single unders with a skipping rope, and remaining time out of each 60-second block, you're going to go into lunges for as many reps as you can fit in the last little bit there. Em, you good to go? Yep. All right, so we're going to start in 10 seconds, so 2 minutes of cardio of your choice. You guys can pick what you want here, be creative, get some movements that are going to jack that heart rate up, and let's go for it. So very important if you're doing what we're doing, guys, we really want to go for a nice light plate, right? So Em's working with a 10-pound plate there. It's just something that's really going to just be something to hang on to. We're not really looking for the loading to be the difficult part of this. It's more just about the actual body movement itself. So thinking about keeping the back nice and straight, knees open in that sort of sumo stance at the bottom. As we move into these running step-ups, I mentioned before, it's a low target, and that's deliberate, just so we can kind of ease the body into all the harder stuff. We want to start off with something fairly simple, fairly easy, and all she's doing is just jumping the feet back on and off that plate there, staying nice and light on the balls of her feet. So 30 repetitions on that. You guys can switch from right to left how you want. She's stepping on with her left foot. She wants to mix in her right foot as well, even it up, that's up to her. Always a good idea to try and keep things nice and balanced, but you can switch it how you want. Now, once we finish this 2-minute block, we move into that 3-minute section where we'll be doing the 50 skips and the lunges each minute. We're going to keep working on this for about 55 more seconds. So this is a good opportunity to sort of wake up and warm up those hamstrings in that pulling position from the ground. And then at the top, we're really opening up those shoulders. So we can see Em's head popping through. She's not leaving it out in front there and kind of shortcutting that lockout. She's making sure she explores the biggest range of motion she can. Each cycle of this, or each cycle of whatever it is you're doing, you can sort of start to elevate the intensity as you see fit. If you found a good speed where you feel like everything's loosening up on its own, that's cool. You can stay at the flat rate, or if you want to, you can kind of ascend with the intensity as you go. So 15 more seconds. Alrighty, 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So 50 skips opens up each minute for the next 3 minutes. So we're thinking about a nice close stance, arms in a deliberate position, right? Don't let them just go wherever they want to go. We want to actually tuck those elbows in, have the hands kind of just fall to the pockets, and it's just a nice sort of relaxed little flick from the wrists, a little bit of elbow motion, but not too much. Staying nice and upright, nice and open through those hips there. Now once we get to 50, we're going to go into lunges. So that's taken us 25 seconds. We have the remainder of the minute to go through those lunges. So nice long spacing with this, guys. You're generally going to feel more comfortable by actually stepping a little bit bigger rather than a little bit shorter. Trying to look for all the joints to get nice and squared up. So basically 90-degree bends at both knees and at the hips there. And having a nice loaded front heel on that leading foot, whether it's right or left, just make sure we're not pitching up onto the toes. 3, 2, 1, and back onto the skips. Now, if you don't happen to have a skipping rope, guys, that's totally fine. You can just jump on the spot, so just mimic the movement. It will have obviously less of the coordination piece and the technique piece to it, but you'll still get that nice warm up with the calves, the legs, the heart rate, all that sort of thing. So looking for 50 skips, and we'll make our move on the lunges. So you'll see that Em's doing a forward stepping lunge. You can do forwards, you can do backwards. If you have the space to do it walking, maybe you've got a hallway or something you can work with, either of those are fine. We just want to think about making sure that we touch the knee to the ground. So we've always sort of tick in the box, we've gone full range of motion. And also standing up nice and tall. So we've kind of got points at either end that we want to make sure we go to. And that way we don't sort of shortcut the movement and start to miss out on all that nice hard work. 3, 2, 1. So 1 more minute for the warm up. Back on the skips again, so 50 reps. So we want to think about nice open hips. If you find yourself kind of dolphin kicking and bringing your legs up in front of you, you can kind of see them in front of you. Try to keep them underneath you. So imagine all of your joints kind of stacking on top of each other. And that way we're going to get that nice spring out of the bottom there. All right, so onto the lunges in remaining time. So last 30 seconds. Good idea to kind of check in the knees are tracking well as well, guys. So as you step sort of without changing your posture, you can kind of cast your eyes down. And we can see that Em's got her knee pointing the same direction as her toes, which is ideally what we want. That as opposed to the foot kind of turning out and the knee collapsing inwards. And those two things not lining up. Last couple of reps. 3, 2, 1, and done. All right, guys, that's the warm-up. Take some recovery time, and then we're gonna check out the build workout next. All right, guys, so we're gonna check out the build workout now. So this one has 2 parts to it. And what you guys will be doing is working for 3 minutes, resting for 30 seconds, and then working for another 3 minutes. In that first 3-minute block, we're gonna see 2 movements, and that is jump lunges and alternating V-ups. So it's gonna be 12 reps on each. I'm gonna continue to cycle them for 3 minutes. So jump lunges is gonna look like this. So that split stance, basically jumping and switching the legs mid-air. We then go into the alternating V-ups. So from a hollow position, 1 leg at a time, both hands coming up. So that'll be the couplet for the first 3-minute block. We have a 30-second rest in the middle, and we enter the second 3-minute block where we're gonna see the same jump lunges, so nothing different there, but the movement in the second movement is gonna change, and that's gonna be a leg lift. So legs straight, just bringing them up off the ground, kind of sitting back in like what looks like a bit of a V shape, but the legs are gonna actually touch down on the ground versus a V shape where they would stay in the air the whole time. So you good to go, Em?
Yep.
All right, so we're gonna run on a interval time here because this will reset, guys. So 3 minutes on for this first set. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So thinking about this, guys, it's a fairly short section, this one, so you wanna really push the intensity, really try and minimize the rest to 0 if you can, and just keep it continuous. We've got kind of 2 parts of the body that aren't gonna conflict too much with one another, so we've got legs and then abs, so it's not like we're doubling up, so you should hopefully be able to move back and forth between these things without having to take too much rest. Remembering we have that 30-second rest after the 3-minute section, so try to save your recovery time for then. As we look at these movements, that jump lunge, we're gonna have that nice split lunge position, and it's a jump and switch mid-air. So we still wanna see that knee contact on the ground, but obviously be aware that it does take some coordination. You don't wanna go ramming your knee into the hard floor. So if you feel like you need maybe a yoga mat or a towel or something just as a softer target, especially if you're on hard ground outside, that can be a good idea. And the number one thing that will go wrong with that, guys, when you get tired is the posture will start to kind of tilt forward. We want to make sure we stay nice and upright like Em was then. So with the alternating V-ups, the legs are going to stay as straight as you can keep them, sort of as straight as your hamstrings will allow you to be. And basically both arms are going to come up to the alternating leg there. You notice that her shoulders won't ever touch down on the ground. Okay, is it creeping up on halfway? Going to those 12 jump lunges again. So interesting thing to notice here, she's got that nice vertical shin, so she's not going to tilt forward or have that knee dive forward. She's still maintaining that really good spacing. So that's really important to make sure we've got that good stability through the bottom. Start to shorten it up or go too long, things are going to feel a little wobbly as you move through them. All right, so back on the alternating V-ups. So again, we can see that at the deepest position of this, she's going low back to ground, but not shoulders to ground. So no matter how tired you get, don't let those shoulders peel back. We've got 1 more minute on this one, so we'll go back to lunges again. And Another common flaw that sometimes comes up when people do this movement, they get tired, they start putting their hands on their legs. You don't want to do that because it's going to take away from the challenge of this. So keep the arms up. You can kind of use them a little bit as sort of getting some momentum. That will kind of help keep that posture up as well. We don't want to be slouching and leaning forward. All right. So the top of the movement, she's going to be kind of balancing on the back of her butt. Bottom of the movement, she's on her low back. And it should be at most kind of the bottom of her rib cage touching down on the ground. Okay, 15 more seconds. Three, 2, 1, and resting. All right, so we've got our 30-second clock on now for the rest, guys. I'd suggest moving around a little bit, especially after those lunges. The legs are going to be feeling pretty heavy, so shake them off. The next section is 3 minutes again. We're going to see the same 12 jump lunges, but now we're going to 12 leg lifts. So that's that kind of V-sit position, raising the legs off the ground. So 10 seconds till we start. Going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So this isn't a continuation of the first one, guys. You will start from 0. Think of it as a separate kind of piece. Even though this has the same jump lunge, it's not part of that first section. So if you were midway through a set of something in that first part, just start back from 0 on this second piece. So here are the leg lifts, guys. So she's just got kind of fingertips on the ground, leaning the torso back a little bit, but staying kind of tight and tucked through the hollow there. So ribs are down. She's just kind of balancing on the back of her butt, and then the legs are lifting from ground or sort of like an inch off the ground up to a nice high position there. So again, guys, these two sort of musculatures that involved with each one of these movements aren't going to cross over too much. So hopefully we should be able to see you kind of regain your legs whilst you're doing the leg lifts and then regain your abs whilst you're doing the jump lunges. Okay, so we can see the nice straight legs. If you have tight hamstrings, guys, just do the best you can with this. Just making sure we're getting that nice height on it, so it's that V-tuck kind of a position. All right, back to the lunges. So creeping up on halfway in this second section. So she's still got that nice vertical position. She's not allowing herself to lean forward. She knows that even though that'll kind of feel like she's relaxing, she's only going to have to work harder and harder. The worse a position we're in, the more work we've got to do. All right, so holding the ground again. Got that little bit of lean back. You'll probably find if you're sort of tight in the hamstrings, you'll probably have to lean back even further to allow for this movement. Am's kind of got that sort of hinging motion, so the upper body's actually closing towards the legs at the same time as the legs are raising. Okay, so inside the final minute of this build workout. See, she's nice and accurate with that knee contact on the ground. So she's not missing it, and she's also not ramrodding her knee into the floor. Okay, she's just getting that nice light touch. She's wearing knee sleeves, which is obviously good for knee support, but it can be also a good little way for a little bit of padding under the knee if you do happen to have them. This can be a good time to chuck those on. Okay, 20 more seconds. Last couple of reps. 3, 2, 1, and done. All right, that is the build section done, guys. Have a bit of a chill, get some water in, and we're gonna have a look at the move workout next. Alrighty, guys, we're gonna check out the move workout now. So how this one runs is we have 3 sets of the following. We're gonna see 1 minute on cardio of your choice. We're gonna go with a box jump over. So nice and simple like that, just up and over the top. We do a minute of that, and then we have a 30-second rest. We then move into a minute of burpees with a push-up. So this is gonna kind of be a double movement. Come down, push up, and then we're back up out of it, okay? So we do that for a minute on repeat. Another 30-second rest. We go into a minute of up downs with a squat jump. So we're going to go up, down, and jump out of it. Okay, so again, another combination movement there. So there's a fair bit of coordination to this one, guys. So if you're feeling like a little bit confused as you start it, go slow, figure the movements out first, and then accelerate as you feel good. So that last one is followed by another 30-second rest, and that will just repeat for those 3 sets. Good to go? All right, starting in 10. So we're doing our cardio of choice for this first minute. We're going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So you guys can be creative. You can pick your own option with this one. It's a little bit of a choose your own adventure sort of deal. So make sure it's nice and simple, something like jumping jacks, skipping, if you've got the ability to go and do some shuttle runs or something like that. Anything where it's just going to be nice and continuous for the minute, nice and simple, and it's just going to get that heart rate up. You notice we've gone a reasonably low box with this, and that's just so we can keep it moving the whole time. We were to crank up to like a big high box, we're going to start to kind of slow ourselves down. So we want this to be nice and non-stop. So 30 more seconds. You notice with this, if you're doing the same movement as M here, you want to try and jump for the middle of the box, so you have the ability to just kind of pivot on the spot. You can see she kind of keeps one foot on that just turns on the spot, and that way she's already turned and ready to face the box as she hits the next one there. So 30-second rests. We'll move to our second station in a moment. So this is going to be 1 minute of burpees with that extra push-up. So always good to kind of move around, flush out the body a little bit when you're on those rests. 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So as I said before, guys, this is kind of a double movement. What you'll notice is the first time she comes to ground, she has the ability to kind of roll down. So it's sort of a softer body position. Even though it's still active at the abs, she's able to kind of drop her knees and legs first, take some of the weight out of her arms and roll flat. When she does push up to the top of that position, that's when she's going to get nice and rigid and move through that nice strict push-up. So it's a little bit of kind of switching muscles on and off and coordinating the movement. But as I said, go a little slower while you're trying to figure it out. I want to make sure that second one is nice and sharp through the midsection there, and that it does feel heavy through those arms. It should feel strength-based, whereas the first movement when we drop down is just nice and controlled. We just kind of drop through it. 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and resting. So another 30-second rest, guys. We're going to move to our third and final station, which is the up down with the squat jump. Ten seconds. Going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So we're going to see 2 movements again combined together. So we've got the up down, which is where we're jumping down to push up position and then coming back up. But you can see with this, we've actually got a jump squat to come up where we would normally just kind of bring the feet in and stand up. You can see Em's kind of bending the knees a lot more, kind of shooting the hips through, getting vertical at the bottom there, and then jump squatting out of it. So the feet kind of jump into like a squat stance, which is about shoulder width, toes slightly pointed out. Make sure that when you drive off, you want to have those heels on the ground. Obviously they'll lift as you leave the ground at the top, but in the bottom of the movement where we're creating all that force and pushing all that power through the floor, try not to be just up on your toes. You want to make sure that those heels are down. That's going to protect your knees as well as create a lot more force as we come up. 3, 2, 1, and resting. So 30-second rest, that's our first set down. We've got 2 more sets to get through. So we're going to circle back around to our cardio of choice. We're going to do our box jump overs. Ten seconds. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So again, you can see her going to the middle of the box there. It allows her to just be in a nice even position to swivel round, and then as soon as her second foot hits the ground on the way down, she's ready to go for the next one. Sometimes when we see people doing box jumps, they might land with their heels kind of off the edge, getting that partial purchase with the foot. It's a little harder for balance, and especially if we're going to be going over the box versus just a regular box jump, we want to cover a little bit more ground so we're a little closer to that other side. And notice the involvement of the arms of this as well, guys. She's getting that nice swing motion. So even though it's predominantly legs, calves that are doing the work here, get the whole body involved, get those arms swinging. 3, 2, 1, and resting. So 30-second rest, we move to the burpee with the push-up next. Ten seconds. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So we come down into that first movement, it's a soft roll down, and then we get nice and rigid as we come back up again, go into that secondary movement, which is the push-up. So you're really gonna feel your glutes and your abs, even your legs are gonna really switch on to create that nice tight position. And it's a chest to ground up to lockout. So with both movements, you're gonna see that nice narrow hand position. She's just outside of her shoulders or just outside of her rib cage there. And the peak of the movement, we wanna leave the ground. So it doesn't need to be a gigantic jump, okay? But obviously, the higher the jump, the more energy we use up, which is a good thing, gets us leaner, gets us fitter. So if you wanna have a jump marker or jump as high as you can do that. If you wanna go a little bit more for speed and for reps, you can do a smaller jump. Either way, we want to see those hips nice and open and have the hands either above the head or behind the head. We want to see a hand contact just as a top marker. 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and resting. So 30 seconds recovery time. We go to the up down with the squat jump next. So always a good idea to get some water in, have a bit of a move around between these sets, guys. Try to recover the body as best you can. Ten seconds. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. When you hit the bottom of that up down, guys, this is where we're going to kind of change gears from that burpee where we would kind of flop through, is that controlled drop to the ground. This one's much more rigid, so we're making sure that the hips don't drop through that neutral position. Should be a nice straight line through the body. So when her feet hit the ground, she's going to really tension on, so she can actually kind of just spring back out of it, straight into that squat position, and then drive up as aggressively as she can. So you'll see that she's got nice active shoulders at the bottom there, right here. Ten seconds. And resting. All right, so that is the second set down, guys. We're gonna go through it one more time. Body should be pumping by now, but you just gotta hang on for this last little bit. And so we're gonna really try and push it, finish strong. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So onto our last cycle through this. Back on these box jump overs. Remember I said you can pick what you want to do with this. So if you've got a skipping rope or you've got some space to do some shuttle runs, anything like that is good. Feel free to kind of mix it up as well. If you want to do a couple of different things, that's fine too. Main things we want to make sure that we are checking in, nothing too heavy, nothing too technical, and nothing that's really going to stop us in our tracks. let's say Em overshot this and she went for a big 30-inch box and she had to stop every 20 seconds because it was too high or something like that, that's not really the feel we're after. That's why we're going for this low box where she can keep it continuously moving the whole time. "15 more seconds. Three, 2, 1, and resting. All right, so that's that one done. We've just got 2 more minutes of work to get through. So we'll be looking at that burpee with the push-up next. Three, 2, 1, and go for it. So one thing that Em does really well with coming up out of that push-up position is she's going to be active in pushing the ground away, so really active shoulders, and she's jackknifing those hips, right? So she's like she's trying to pull her toes to her wrists. She gets those hips as high as she can. So she's engaging through the abs, engaging through the hip flexors there. A little bit of lats as well, right? So we're kind of creating that nice sort of jackknife folded position we want. That as opposed to us kind of jumping the knees through the arms, slamming the knees into like a deep knee bend. 10 more seconds. 3, 2, 1, and resting. So 30-second rest, then we've got 1 last minute to this workout. Ten seconds. So up, down with the squat jump. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So an interesting thing to take note of here, guys, we were just discussing this whole thing of like propping the hips up high and not bending the knees. Now with this movement, we have to do that a little bit, but the catch is the fact that Em's getting her heels on the ground and she's actually going knees kind of outside of her arms rather than through the middle, means we actually just jump from one strong position into another. If the knees are running down the middle and we're really heavy on the toes there, that would be a different story, but she's getting into this really beautiful squat position before she launches into that jump. So make sure you take the time to really get that looking good. We want the knees tracking with the toes. If my toes are pointed out slightly, so are my knees. Okay, 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and done. Nice work, Em. All right, guys, that is the move workout done. Take a little bit of recovery time. We do have a finisher coming up next, so stick around for that. All right, guys, so we're gonna have a look at the finisher now. So how this one is gonna run is we're going for 5 minutes, and each minute on the minute, we're gonna start off with 15 Superman snaps, which is gonna look like this. So Superman position and raising the limbs up off the ground. In remaining time of the minute, we're gonna go into max plank. So that's forearms and feet on the ground in a nice straight position. So very much around that midsection there. Em, you good to go? All right, starting in 10. So remember, this goes for 5 minutes. I'm gonna try and fill it up with as much work as we can. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So this one, guys, although we're gonna be raising up, we still wanna try and make the body as long as we can. So you can see Em's legs are locked out at the knee, ankles are at full point, so toes are pointed out, and she's squeezing the ankles together. Same deal with the arms, they're gonna stretch out nice and straight out ahead of her. And when she gets to 15, she's gonna move to that plank position. So you'll very much find this one is low back, glutes, even a little bit of hamstrings. And this one, we're gonna kind of do the flip of things. So it's onto the abs now. You might even feel the quads, if they're locked in nice and tight, they'll get engaged as well. So looking for that nice straightness through the body. So even though the the Superman snaps is a little bit more kind of arch or kind of sort of flexing back there. We want to see this one nice and straight. 10 seconds. So a little strategic break by in there, that's a good idea. It just allows us to keep moving through it really well. And go for it. So you should end up just sort of on the pelvis and kind of low abdomen at the peak of this one, guys. And then just a light touch of the limbs back to the ground. So just keeping it nice and continuous like Em's doing there. Obviously the more time that we can get through this, it means more time for the plank as well. So try not to chew up too much time with this one. You want to keep it controlled, but don't take the whole minute. We want to get some time on this as well. You can see she's going to get about 30 seconds or 20 to 30 seconds on this plank. So nice active shoulders. You can see if we look at her sort of rear shoulders and upper back there, she's not collapsing through her shoulder blades. She's pressing the ground away, staying nice and active there. Glutes are going to be working just as hard as the abs. You're going to feel the pelvis kind of lock in place there with those two things working as a team. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So round 3 now, back on the Superman snaps. As always, guys, if you're doing this outside on some rough ground, concrete, or maybe just on the grass, a yoga mat or a towel underneath goes a long way. Especially when we get onto that plank, we want those forearms on something comfortable. So important with both of these movements, guys, we do want to still continue to breathe through it. I know that sounds really stupid, but oftentimes people will just hold their breath, especially when you're holding a static position like this. So just short little breaths along the way. Keep that oxygen coming in, but maintain that nice tension through there. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now, if you happen to be someone with very, very tight shoulders and this overhead position just feels like a bit of a nightmare for you, take the hands out into more of like a Y position, even a T if you need to. Essentially, the main part we're focusing on is what's actually happening at the low back and the hips there. So as long as we can get that going, if your shoulders feel better a little wider out, that's okay. Over time, though, we want to try and bring them into where M is, which is like about a shoulder width position. All right, so moving back to the plank. So she's got forearms and feet at about shoulder width. So she's got a nice stable position there. Legs are locked out. Ribs are down with the belly button kind of drawn to her spine. Okay, 10 seconds. We've got one last round to go. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Doing good, Em. Okay, last 30 seconds. So you want to watch with this plank, guys. Be really aware of if your hips are starting to sink through or if they're starting to push up to the roof, like trying to pitch up like a camelback. You want to keep it nice and straight. Sometimes that will feel harder, but that's kind of where we want to lean into, is challenging that midsection to work hard. Don't allow it an easy position. 10 seconds. And time. All right, that's the finisher done, guys. We've got some stretching up next, so stick around for that. Alrighty, guys, so now that all the hard work's done, we're just gonna slow things down with a little bit of mobility work to finish off. So the first drill we're gonna do, we just do this for 1 minute. We've got a seated butterfly, so knees are butterflied out, hands are gonna go on the shins there, and we're basically gonna pull ourselves down to our feet. So I'll chuck a timer on. And what I want you to do, guys, is don't feel as though you've got to stay at the bottom the whole time. What Em can do is she can hang out there for a little bit, and then she can come up again, relax, take a big breath in, And then exhale as she comes back down. She might be able to pull herself even deeper down. Now you can kind of approach this from two different ways. You could go a rounded back style, or you can go a straight back and hinge at the hips. So you'll feel the stretch a little differently through the hips depending on which way you go with that, but either way is fine. Just make sure you're not forcing anything, especially that rounded back one. Just go to where you feel a nice stretch, but don't sort of try to flatten yourself down all the way. So this will just be a nice one to get into that low back, a little bit of glutes, a little bit of hips, just in that rear chain. So 10 more seconds on this. Right, so that's our first drill. Second one we're going to do is a seated quad stretch. So Em's going to bring one foot right up behind her, tuck the other one in front there, and she's going to lean back on that elbow. So we'll do this one for 45 seconds on each side. What we're really looking at doing is getting into sort of the quad hip flexor, right? So on this right leg, this is the one she's stretching. She's got this foot tucked right up to her butt. And that's usually the case if you are doing this and you're kind of like, I'm not really feeling it. Usually means your foot is splayed out, so you need to wind that up, pull it in nice and close. The other foot's in front there just for comfort's sake, and then she's leaning on that left elbow. So thinking about kind of opening up through the hips and almost sort of corkscrewing her body to look over that opposite shoulder, and that's going to wind that stretch up even more. Five more seconds. All right, switching sides. Okay, so she's switching it up so you can see she takes the time to really crank that leg in, opens up through the hips there, and then winds the body round. So this is a really nice one after you've done a really hard workout, guys, because you can very much relax into this. You're resting on that elbow there. It's a fairly comfortable position, which allows you to focus on kind of pushing that stretch as far as your pain tolerance will allow. We'll go 15 more seconds. So thinking about kind of breathing through the stretch, try to allow it to open up a little bit if you want to kind of push it a little bit and then relax it off and then push a little bit further like we did with that seated butterfly. Alrighty, so those are our two drills, guys. If you've got time, let's go through that 3 or 4 times. Take the time to really loosen the body up. Otherwise, we will catch you next time. That's been your Move Plus workout.